Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Rob Dwyer, and we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about AI and call centers. So, how do we empower people and call centers with AI? Rob, before we get into that and get into the detail, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me all over LinkedIn, and you can also find me at our website, happy2.com, HAPPITU.com.
And you're very busy on LinkedIn, so I know that people can find you.
Yeah.
I'll open up with a controversial question. Um, Surely we're just going to replace all call centers with AI anyway.
I mean, is that a question? Didn't pose it like a question, but I think there are people absolutely who are in that camp who are maybe working toward that, and I firmly believe that that is not going to be the case, and I'll tell you why. Everyone thought that ATMs were going to replace bank tellers
Mm,
decades ago,
mm.
and they
And
haven't.
crypto was going to replace money.
Absolutely. What ends up happening is certain tasks, absolutely. Like if I just need quick cash, yes, I'm just going to go to the ATM. But there are all kinds of reasons that I still go to a traditional bank. It could be the limits placed on an ATM. So, for instance, my ATM, if I need to give more than $600, it won't let me. It has a daily limit. I need to go to the bank. The bank doesn't like if I walk into the bank and say, "Hey, I need $3,000 out of my checking account," and I actually have $3,000, they'll give it to me. So there is still a place for humans in contact centers. It's just going to take certain tasks away from them, which is okay. And quite honestly, if you ask the average contact center agent, they would probably tell you there are certain things I prefer not to deal with anyway. So, um, contact center agents not going away.
So, how is AI reshaping the traditional call center landscape?
There are loads of ways, and I think it's important to clarify what we mean when we say AI. There are different kinds of AI out there. Most people today are thinking about generative AI. That is the hot topic. It's what OpenAI has made a popular topic in the general populace, not just people who are data nerds and machine learning scientists. What I do think is that how we train, how we support agents, and how we evaluate agents, all of those things are going to have a flavor of AI introduced into them. And it will make things much more efficient in the contact center. And I can give you lots of examples of that, but there are already technologies that are being put in place into contact centers that are doing these things today. It's not far off. It's literally happening today.
So, for example, when I contact my mobile or cell phone company, most of the things that I deal with now are dealt with by chatbot.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
but there are certain things where I do need to talk to a human. Recently, FedEx were delivering a parcel to me, and not through their fault, they delivered it to the wrong address, and they put me towards a chatbot, and the chatbot couldn't work it out.
Right.
It
Right.
it 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 I had to end up talking to a human because the person that sent it to me sent it to put the wrong address on it. So there is, there's still reason, isn't there, to talk to
Yeah.
humans?
Yeah, that problem solving capability does not yet exist in AI. And I'm not saying it won't ever exist, but I do think there is a level of confidence that we have as humans when we're interacting with other humans. We're fine with certain low level tasks being automated. So, for instance, if I'm talking to a chatbot just because I want to get your return policy, or I just want to return a package from an automated standpoint, that can work relatively well depending on the technology that the company has in place. And I think we've become more and more comfortable with certain self-serve type of, we call it self-serve, but it's really me interacting with some type of automated system, AI or not AI, it doesn't really matter. But when things get complex, when I have a problem, that's when I want to talk to a person, and I want to feel confident that that person understands me, hears me, and is taking steps to solve whatever problem it is that I'm reaching out with.
So where are you seeing AI working with agents then?
I think we're seeing a few things. So I'll give you three big examples. The first one is in when we're training and onboarding agents. One of the biggest challenges, and my background is in training in the contact center. That was my first role after I was an agent. I trained. And one of the biggest challenges is just mock calls or practice calls, right? As a trainer, I want to get as much practice in as possible, but there's only one of me if I'm training. And so AI is able to step in and create realistic sounding scenarios with agents so that we can all practice at the same time. And we can master certain situations by practicing. So it feels a little bit more lifelike. I can get feedback. The next piece is agent support. So when agents are actually working with customers, there are questions that come up, and AI is able to potentially surface information that might be relevant to provide them a particular policy that someone has asked about without me having to search for it. It also supports what we call in the business after call work. So after call work is like noting an account, going into a CRM and saying, "Hey, I talked to Tim about X, Y, and Z, and this is the result of that call." AI is really good at summarizing what just happened by just listening to the call recording. So we can take that off the agent's plate to make them a little bit more efficient. And then I think the final piece, and the piece that I'm most focused on, is call quality. And this is a process that has existed in call centers for a long time, where we listen to a very tiny subset of calls. We score them partly to identify agent performance, partly to understand what's happening in the business. And the reality is, there's just never been a- enough people listening to calls and scoring them for us to get really good data out of that. And so with AI, we can score 100% of our calls, and we can do other things like sentiment analysis and understanding like what's causing people to call today that maybe wasn't happening last week. So there's just another level of data analysis that we can do that we couldn't do before because it just wasn't cost efficient.
I guess it's that situation where we're able to rise up and kind of concentrate on the more detailed stuff and let AI kind of take the
Absolutely.
more of the stuff that we don't want to do.
I mean, here's the thing, like as a supervisor, I want to be coaching. I want to help my agents perform at their best. I want to deal with their HR related issues potentially. I want to build teams and teamwork. And in some call centers, instead, as a supervisor or team leader, I'm spending most of my time listening to calls. Like that's not where I should be spending my time. Let me know what I need to work with my agents. That way I can come to you, Tim. And instead of saying, "Hey, let's listen to this call together," or "I just spent an hour listening to calls and now I only have 10 minutes with you," I can actually spend time with you. So just from a management standpoint, it's way better than what has traditionally been the case.
So what tasks are you getting AI to do now, in addition to the ones that you've just mentioned?
Well, there are all kinds of things. So let's talk about kind of the traditional IVR, right? I think we've all experienced an IVR.
That's where you ring
IVRs,
up and you go, press 3 for this and press
yeah,
2 for
absolutely.
service. Yeah.
Yeah. That is not the best experience. That experience is becoming a little bit better in that I can have things be a little bit more natural language. That's always been the challenge with the IVR is you use natural language and the IVR says, "I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Can
Yeah,
you
I'm
repeat
whenever they ask me, what do you want? I always like freeze and go, what do I want? What do I want? What?
it?" So it's becoming a little bit easier there. And when we talk about the chatbots, for instance, right? The chatbot experience for most people has been a bad experience because it's much like the IVR. You ask it a question, and the answer that you get back is either a non sequitur or it says, I didn't
I
understand.
go to the website. No, 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 no.
Right.
I went to the website.
It's right. And so, what we can do now is we can provide a better chatbot experience. The challenge lies, and this is important because we haven't solved all the challenges. The challenge lies in that by using generative AI, the chatbot can, if you're not careful with it, it can go a little bit off the rails, and so it could provide you information that is not accurate. And we've seen this in the wild with companies where a chatbot has given out bad information.
There was something recently, wasn't there, where there was an airline and the
Mhm.
person wanted a what they called a bereavement flight,
Yeah.
and the chat bot agreed to it, and then a human came along and said, "No, you can't have it."
Yeah, absolutely. That happened with a Canadian airline.
That
They
was it.
actually they took it to court and
Mm,
lost.
yeah.
And so I think companies need to be strategic about how they deploy those kinds of things from a self-service perspective. And there are techniques that you can use to get better results out of that. But in my mind, those customer facing applications have innately more danger associated with them from a business perspective because humans are humans, right? We're unpredictable. Sometimes we just like to break things for whatever reason. Just we just want to try, right?
Yeah.
Can I do it? Let me see if I
Yeah.
can do it. Let me see if I can get this chatbot to say something that it
Absolutely.
shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that anyone tries to do when with OpenAI was, will you take over the world, or asking something like that. It was the first question that people asked, wasn't
Right. I don't know why we do that, but we do it. And that's not a secret. So when you do things with AI that are in a more controlled environment, like supporting an agent to give them information that they then can parse and pass on, you're operating from a much safer perspective. And again, it keeps a human in the loop where a human can look at something and go, "Hmm, that's not right." And instead of just repeating that to a customer, they can draw on their own experience and stop and pause, ask a question like, "Is that actually the case? Did that policy change and I didn't know about it? What's going on there?" So there's definitely, I think, for companies, a safety factor when it comes to keeping agents in the loop and communicating with their customers.
it? Yeah. So, what do you see are the challenges?
I mean, well, we just talked about one, which is just this potential for AI to go off the rails, right? That is a challenge, and it's a challenge that still needs to be solved. I think the other challenge that needs to be solved or needs to be thought about is really the energy and the compute power that some of these AI processes take. And sometimes I think we are using the wrong tool for a particular solution. So, for instance, if I just need to cut off a tiny little branch off of a tree, like it's that time of year, I'm going to have to do some tree trimming, right? I can use a chainsaw or I can use a little handsaw. And sometimes a chainsaw is necessary because I've got a really big problem to tackle, a really large branch. And sometimes I can just use a little handsaw that I don't need to use the chainsaw. And I think we see that with AI where we're trying to do really incredibly simple things and we're using this really complex and energy intensive tool. And so there's a balance to be had there where we can identify when does it make sense to use this and when can we use something that's lower tech that's going to accomplish the exact same results.
I think there's a saying, isn't there, that if you have a hammer, everything is a nail.
Exactly.
And I think, quite often what we're trying to do is we see AI as the answer, and then we're basically, so what's the question, rather than
Yeah.
what are we trying to do from a business perspective.
Yeah, that is absolutely the first thing I encourage business leaders to look at is what problem are you trying to solve? And then let's talk about what tools are available and which tool is going to make the most sense. Because if you are just adopting AI to adopt AI, then you are going to try and throw it at all kinds of potentially different problems or things that aren't even necessarily problems. And it's just a waste of resources. Like, why are we doing
So I know that you're big into Lego, Rob, and we can see that from the Lego
You
behind you.
can.
So if you had a Lego crystal ball
Mm.
that you could look into and look into the future, what do you think you'd be seeing?
I think I would be seeing more money flowing out of my bank account and into Lego's coffers. That's what I think I would see. I try not to, Tim. I try not to make predictions, and I'll tell you why. We as humans are horrible at making predictions because it's just what history has shown us. But here's what I will predict. We are going to see more and more applications of AI, and we will find out which ones work, which ones don't work. And AI will become a part of our everyday lives. It's just a matter of how much and do we like it as consumers? And I think the applications where we don't like it are going to be where businesses pull back and say, well, okay, let's not do that because it's not increasing customer experience, it's not driving revenue, so why are we doing it?
I think that I was at an event last week, and I think what a lot of people were kind of saying was that they were getting from their leaders, people were saying, what are we doing about AI? And they're going, well, we're not doing anything. Well, why not?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we be doing, and it's like, well, it's like, which is going back to the AI for AI's sake.
Mhm.
There needs to be a business case for it. So what advice would you give to call center leaders about AI, the future, and what they should be doing about it?
Well, I think you've just illustrated a really important thing, and that is that, look, fundamentally, AI can help you in some ways, but you need to make the business case for it first. You need to understand, what is this going to cost? How is it improving our customer experience, our agent experience, our business results? And make a calculated decision based off of that. And in some cases, you might say, you know what, that technology, while I love it, it doesn't actually make business sense based off of the cost or the implementation timeline or the scale of my business. It just might not make any sense for you. There may be smaller, less expensive solutions that can get you part of the way where you want to go that do make sense for your business. And I've talked to some business leaders that just say, you know what? I've really analyzed this. And in my world, it doesn't make sense. And I'm not going to pursue it just yet. And I'm absolutely on board with that. I don't think it is right for everyone in every business. And I think every business just needs to evaluate it on their own and make really good decisions based on what's right for them, not just because I feel like I'm going to miss out on something.
We've had a couple of comments, Rob. Deborah Lee Cartier basically said good afternoon, which is very good afternoon, Deborah. And LinkedIn user basically says AI for AI's sake is definitely the wrong way to go. Well said, Tim.
Mhm.
And I don't know whether AI user is thinking, but they said as for predictions, ding ding ding. So and by the way, AI user, the reason why your name's not coming up is in your settings in LinkedIn. You have to tell it or give it permission to basically share the information. I'm not sure it is, but that's why it's coming up. Um, So in terms of at the end of the day, Rob, it's about customer experience, isn't it? And it's about starting at the customer experience and working back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for businesses today, we have all kinds of technology available to us, right? AI, not AI. There are just so many different ways that we can solve particular challenges. And they're not right for every business. But I think savvy business leaders are looking first at what is this like for my customer? How does this support my customer? How does this make my customer more loyal, more likely to buy more from me, more satisfied when they do buy things from me? And then work their way from that. If I look at a technology and I say, well, that's probably not going to make the customer feel very good or maybe push them in another direction, then why would you implement that?
And that's a good point to end on. Rob, thank you so much for coming on and talking about how we can empower call centers with AI. Remind people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just search for Rob Dwyer. You'll see this ugly mug with a blue background, and send me a connection request or a follow. Either way, feel free to reach out.
And the website again?
It's happy2.com, HAPPITU.com.
Thank you so much, Rob, for coming on.